The last ice age. Millions of large animals roam the earth. It's an age of giants. But as the temperatures rise, 3/4 of these species die out. Were they unable to adapt? Or did they fall victim to our ancestors? After all, this was the same period we humans began our conquest of the entire world. Man or climate? Researchers across the globe hunt for the remains of extinct animals in their search for an answer, and draw an ever more accurate picture of the life of our ancestors. In New Mexico, they discovered traces of a last struggle for survival. And early human genetic evidence might be the decisive clue to help solve the mystery of the Ice Age giants. Canada, 35,000 years ago. The sun rises over a world covered in ice. Huge glaciers have advanced from the north, burying vast lands beneath them. But the whole planet isn't frozen. Beyond the ice stretches a far-reaching steppe. When spring arrives and nature blossoms, the grassland becomes a grazing area for many large animals. Woolly mammoths, with their 2.5-meter-long tusks, are the icons of the Ice Age, weighing up to 6 tons. They eat up to 200 kilograms of grass a day. Only these open expanses offer them ideal living conditions. The mammoths share their habitat with steppe bison, relatives of today's bison. So many herbivores attract fearsome predators, like the cave lion. It mainly targets reindeer. But the top killer is the saber-tooth cat. It impales its prey with its long canines. Before now, there have never been so many great mammals on Earth. How did they spread worldwide? Millions of years ago, the North and South American continental plates drift toward each other. Volcanoes rise out of the sea, and around 2.6 million years ago, they create a land bridge, Central America. Central America cuts off the connection between the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. The Gulf Stream intensifies and carries large amounts of warm water to the north. The water evaporates, and winds drive the moisture onto land. It rains more frequently. More fresh water flows into the Arctic Ocean. The salt content of the icy ocean drops and freezes faster. The ice-covered sea reflects the sunlight and can barely store any heat. The entire Earth cools down slowly through this complex process. The changing angle of the Earth's axial tilt to the sun reaches a natural minimum. Temperatures drop further, and the Ice Age begins. Huge ice caps form in the northern hemisphere, retain water, and cause the sea level to drop considerably. A cold but dry climate prevails. Where forests once covered the Earth, grasslands now spread out. This habitat is named Mammoth Steppe. It offers ideal conditions for large herbivores. It is a flowering time of life in a cold, worldwide Serengeti. But then, this Ice Age ends, and most large animals die out. What happened? A common theory is that climate change wiped out these animals. When the ice melted 12,000 years ago, the sea level rose, and it rained more often. The steppe became forest land again, and the habitat of mammoths and other large animals simply disappeared. But can environmental changes alone really explain this mass extinction? Yukon Territory, deep in northwestern Canada. Here, too, there were once vast pastures inhabited by Ice Age animals. Hardly any people live in this region north of the Arctic Circle. There's only one village left, Old Crow, the main settlement of the Vuntut-Gwitchin, the native inhabitants of this part of the Yukon. The expedition on the trail of extinct giants begins here. Ice Age experts Dick Mol and Grant Zazula want to find out how much pressure the animal kingdom actually came under from global warming.
Right here is the Porcupine River Slough Basin, and that's locality 11.
The locality 47. This is of interest to me.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I know why, too.
Why?
I think because it has some very old mammoths.
Yeah.
This is the headwaters of the Porcupine.
Yeah.
Because the ground in the Yukon is permanently frozen just below the surface, more fossils of Ice Age animals have been preserved here than in many other places on Earth. The number and nature of these finds provide clues to the question whether the extinction of many large animals was driven by man or climate. Dick Mol is known as Sir Mammoth. He's considered one of the world's leading mammoth experts. The Dutchman has searched the whole world for bones and teeth of extinct Ice Age animals. At the Old Crow River, new fossils are washed ashore every year.
We gotta check that beach down that way. We should actually go and do that now.
Grant Zazula knows exactly where the best sites are.
We are here now.
It's like right there?
Yeah.
There should be stuff there. Yeah, those, I see a few things on that surface. I don't know if they're bones, but they look like larger pieces.
Over millennia in the ground, the fossils have turned black. Sometimes the fossils are only branches or stones.
Oh, that's a horse. Oh.
At first sight, straight bones often look like pieces of wood. Nevertheless, an unbelievable number of finds comes together. They leave no doubt. For tens of thousands of years during the Ice Age, even here, north of the Arctic Circle, nothing seems to have seriously endangered the existence of large animals. On the contrary, as a very special fossil proves.
There's lots of stuff here. This is a good beach.
Oh, look here, Grant. Look.
Pick it up.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Jeez.
That's really nice.
Look, the tip entirely complete.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, you know, this is the closest you can get to a mammoth.
Yeah.
To touch the tip of the tusk.
Wow. Do you think that's probably a young individual? It's not that big. It's not that thick around.
But something is missing here. It's broken.
It's broken,
but
obviously.
it should be a female.
You think
so? Slender. Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
quite straight.
Yeah.
It's not that long.
Wow.
Beautiful. So,
good beach.
yeah, we don't often find the tips. They often get broken off, right?
Yeah.
So, that's really cool.
We
found that within 5 minutes here at this beach. It's fabulous to make such a great find ourselves. That's pure ivory in my hand here. And the tip is also very beautiful. It tells us something about the environment in which the mammoth lived. The landscape looked completely different than it does today. And the animals lived and fed here and worked with their tusks. That's why they are polished so beautifully. That's something that tells us that this animal was probably in very good condition when it died.
The researchers gather bags of fossils on this short stretch of shore alone. They come from mammoths, horses, bison, and musk oxen. Couldn't these animals have survived the new warm period in the far north of the Americas? Although these first finds are excellently preserved, they don't give the researchers any clues about the extinction of these species. But then, finally, Mol and Zazula find a fossil that doesn't really fit into the picture.
Oh, look at this. This is cool. We haven't seen one of these yet. Come have a look. That looks like the root. Yeah, for certain.
This striking
Preservation
tooth
is beautiful.
belongs to an extinct beaver species.
These are beavers that were bigger than Dick Mol. That's awesome.
Yeah, this is the inside. Yeah, looks like that. Yeah, it's big.
Like this.
Yeah.
I love it. This is the best one we have. Very exciting. Here is a lower incisor of a giant beaver, Castroides ohioensis, and this is like an amazing, iconic Ice Age animal. It's a beaver the size of a black bear. It's taller than I am. I can't imagine seeing one of these face to face, but we know that this is an animal that only lives in forested conditions. So we know it wasn't living on the steppe tundra along with woolly mammoths and bison. So this is an animal that lived when it was warm, there was trees. And the last time that we had those types of climatic and environmental conditions in northern Yukon was about 125,000 years ago.
The discovery of the giant beaver proves that long before the end of the Ice Age, temperatures had already dramatically risen once, and the environment changed. But steppe animals like mammoths need a cold and dry climate and large amounts of grass. So what happened to them in that early warm period? Why didn't they die out back then? The scientists keep searching. On a 40-meter high cliff face, they finally come across remains of large trees. They're about as old as the beaver fossil and have been perfectly preserved in permafrost. It had to be as warm as it is today for such trees to have grown here. Because even in our warm period, this area lies on the northern edge of the forest. Trees only grow very slowly, and treeless tundra begins just a few kilometers north of here. But this tree grew very well in the middle of the Ice Age, judging by its annual rings.
Watered. Wow.
Wow, pretty fat rings.
Right here are a bunch of remnants of ancient forests, trees, logs, there's spruce cones, there's leaves, all showing that there was spruce forest here about 125,000 years ago. And this was a very different environment than what most people envision for the Ice Age. The steppe tundra, the mammoth steppe. This wasn't the mammoth steppe. This was a forest just like we have today.
In a landscape like this, with dense coniferous forest, there was certainly not enough food for steppe animals. So they had to leave this region and find a habitat that met their needs. During the Ice Age, a new warm period began about every 100,000 years and lasted at least 10,000 years. The grass steppe, here in yellow, was pushed back, and many large animals had to retreat to these last refuges. Only when it became colder again and the glaciers expanded south, their habitat expanded again and they experienced another population boom. This adaptation to changing environmental conditions is one of the greatest achievements in the history of life. It shows how flexible many animal species were. Climate change was certainly not the only factor in the extinction of the large animals of the Ice Age.
This soil layer, that is the modern age in which we live today. Geologically speaking, also a warm period. And down there, these layers are Ice Age deposits. Cold periods, warm periods, cold periods, warm periods. And in there, we find thousands and thousands of fossils. But here's the border. This soil began to form 11,000 years ago. In this layer, we find nothing at all. That is a sign for a major turning point in the history of life.
The disappearance of the Ice Age giants is one of the biggest extinction waves of the past couple million years. If environmental changes alone cannot explain them, what can? Early on, researchers suspected that man might have played a role in this. Almost overnight, the large animals were literally exterminated. There was even talk of an all-out war of man against Ice Age giants. What supports this hypothesis? The extinction of large Ice Age animals coincides with the spread of our ancestors across Earth. But were early hunter-gatherers even able to kill dangerous animals that weighed tons? Is it not more probable that they kept their distance from these giants? The search for traces of man's influence on the Ice Age's mass extinction leads to Europe. Coming from Africa, our ancestors reached Europe approximately 45,000 years ago. Never before had they advanced so far north. There, they met the large animals of the Ice Age steppe for the first time. The south of the Czech Republic. Since the 1920s, numerous Ice Age campsites of our ancestors were excavated in this valley near Dolní Věstonice. They're about 30,000 years old. Here, Dick Mol and Czech anthropologist Jiří Svoboda want to reconstruct how man and megafauna might have encountered each other.
What we have here is a group of large settlements, relatively very large for mobile hunter-gatherers. And we excavate ground plans, we excavate fireplaces, hearths, and around them we can, with more or less security, imagine tent-like structures. Next to the settlement, there are really places where they collected the bones.
Historical photographs show how enormous the dimensions of these mysterious heaps of bone were. Did people collect the remains from found carcasses to use as fuel or raw material for everyday objects? Or had they killed them? One thing is certain. These finds are not isolated cases. Discovery locations extend like a web to cover a region that extends from Austria to Poland.
Yeah, it's polished.
Artifacts discovered at the campsites provide the first clues as to why these bone accumulations exist.
From here, and this is also 30,000 years old.
A particularly rare find,
Ivory,
this
pure
mammoth ivory tip.
And shaped.
Yeah, you can see that it has been worked here on the tip
Yes, sure.
to sharpen it. And this is from Pavlov.
Pavlov, yeah.
Was the tip
Any
possibly
age
on
is
a
about
lance?
30,000 years.
Such a
30,000
weapon could have
years.
been used to inflict fatal stab wounds on large
Showing this
animals.
one. And these tools are also very interesting.
So now we see the
Among the
projectiles
artifacts,
made of
there are also many
flint.
flint blades and
This is attached
spikes.
to a stick.
Yeah.
Flintstone does not
Penetrate into
naturally
the
occur in this
body of an
region.
animal.
Humans brought it from
Oh, it's
far
beautiful. You
away.
can see even the retouche here.
Yes, it's retouched. Yeah.
And it's so sharp. I think I could cut myself with it.
And again, put in
Experts
the
say
wooden handle
these are the tips of
for
large
killing
spears.
Animals.
But even with such weapons, could humans have killed the greatest beasts of the Ice Age? Certainly not a single hunter, but it was just manageable with a group and a smart strategy. Some distract the animals, others then attack them from behind. A hunting tactic that relies on clearly communicated roles. In the small town of Predmosti, a small portion of a huge collection of bones was preserved.
Part of the cultural layer.
Once, sites like this one covered many hundreds of square meters. Humans did not shy away from any animal.
Oh, lots of mammoths I see. A scapula, a big tusk, part of a mandible, some vertebra. Most of the bones belong to very small individuals, babies, 2-3 years old.
I have excavated mammoths all over the world, but I have never encountered such an accumulation of mammoth bones. Over 1,000 mammoths have died here. And when I look at these bones, I see that they are all relatively young. It was not a natural gathering. It was caused by humans. You could say that this was an Ice Age butcher shop.
The site has another surprise in store for Dick Mol. Between the many mammoth bones lies the skeleton of a wolf. How did this predator's remains end up here?
You see scapula, you see line of his vertebrae.
Since the first excavations in the Czech Republic in the 1880s, bones of more than 100 such Ice Age wolves have come to light. Were the shy animals attracted by human slaughter waste and then killed?
For a dog, this is, in my opinion,
On closer inspection, some of the skulls have atypical characteristics.
And also from wolves, which is about 9.3.
The anatomical peculiarities suggest a different assumption for Dick Mol.
Some of them stand out because they are relatively small. If you measure these, you notice that the palate region is rather wide relative to the length. The muzzle is relatively short. These are characteristics of dogs. If these are dogs, then they are very old, almost the oldest dogs in the world. And they lived shortly after man began to domesticate wolves.
So these hunters may have been among the first humans to use dogs as hunting helpers to rush fast and high-endurance animals like bison, drive them to exhaustion, and corner them. With this method, our ancestors could have put themselves at the top of the food chain. But would they really have been able to trigger the decline of 3/4 of all the great animals of the Ice Age? At the University of Tübingen, paleontologist Hervé Boucheron is investigating how widespread such hunting strategies actually were. His goal? To reconstruct the hunting successes and eating habits of early Europeans for as many regions as possible. First, he has to analyze the chemical composition of fossil bones and teeth. Each animal species stores carbon and nitrogen variants from its food in a specific ratio in the body. People who regularly consume certain animals' meats store their chemical fingerprints in their bones. This is visible through a single substance, collagen.
We find out, for instance, that reindeer is essentially eaten by cave lions, and that mammals are essentially eaten by humans, and not by any carnivore. So it seems that the humans had a strong affinity as predators on mammals' meat. For some modern humans found in Central Europe, we find even 60% of mammals consumption, plus or minus 10%.
Boucheron is certain. With the arrival of man, the animals of the Ice Age came under pressure.
When there is no humans, mammals were safe from predation, while when there were this type of humans, they were not, and this changes a lot the amount of mammals you have in the environment.
Our ancestors cleverly exploited a previously untapped resource when they went on the hunt for mammoths. But mammoths were also particularly attractive for another reason. They provided people with an abundance of something that many smaller animals didn't have: fat. Humans can't feed on lean meat alone. It has comparatively little energy in the form of protein, and its conversion in the body produces toxins that can only be excreted in limited quantities. This is why we also need energy-rich nutrients such as fat or vegetable carbohydrates. However, plant food was rarely available in the glacial environment. Another advantage of high-fat food: it warms the body in cold climates. A comparable diet is common among Arctic peoples. The Inuit traditionally take in many vital nutrients from the fat layer of seals and whales. which they often eat raw. Uncooked meat contains lots of vitamins. Similarly to the Ice Age, in this environment, there's hardly any plant food available. The theory of the meat-eating Ice Age man is supported by paleogenetic investigations. From well-preserved bones and teeth of our ancestors, researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Human History in Jena, Germany, can still extract genetic material even after tens of thousands of years. Once extracted, the ancient DNA has to be multiplied. The process is fully automated. Finally, the genetic information is read in a sequencer, and the genetic blueprint of the ancient Europeans can be reconstructed.
Was uns da besonders überrascht hat, war, dass die Jäger und Sammler
What surprised us in particular was that the hunters and gatherers looked more like people who now live south of the Sahara. At least they don't have the genes that we find in Central Europeans today that causes the light skin color typical of people in Western Eurasia. And there's the problem. We can ingest vitamins through food, but there is one vitamin in particular, vitamin D, which is produced through sunlight in the skin. If you now have dark skin and live in a place where it is relatively dark, you cannot produce this vitamin D in the skin through the sunlight. To balance it out, you can absorb it through food. However, there is hardly any vitamin D in vegetable food. Animal food, on the other hand, has vitamin D, for example, in fish and meat.
The genetic evidence shows that light skin only spread after the Ice Age, when our ancestors changed their diet.
From hunting and gathering, man evolved into a settled farmer and begins to domesticate animals and cultivate the land. The early farmers were vegetarians and had this big problem that they had to adapt to a vegetarian life in the north, that is, where there was hardly any light, and therefore they became more and more fair-skinned. Caucasian skin color became common. It was a direct adaptation to agriculture and to the low-light conditions that prevailed in Europe.
In the Ice Age, before the introduction of agriculture, it was vital for our ancestors to have enough meat and fat available at all times. So they built up provisions. One option was to bury parts of the prey in cold soil. Meat was probably also dried in the cold wind under the open sky. On top of that, people certainly knew how to preserve meat by smoke, in smoking tents made of animal skins. The clues come together to form a clear picture. Man was a skillful hunter, for whom the animal world was not prepared. But were there really enough people so early on in our history that entire animal species came under threat? Determining exact population figures for epochs so far in the past is one of the most difficult tasks of Ice Age research. But in caves of the Swabian Alps, archaeologists repeatedly find clues of a rapid population development that began with the arrival of our ancestors in Europe. One of the most famous sites is the cave Hohlefels. In the meter-thick deposits at the bottom of this cave, researchers find artifacts that are up to 65,000 years old. At that time, another human species lived in Europe, the Neanderthal. They visited the cave regularly but left only a few traces. Neanderthals died out about 40,000 years ago. The upper layers, on the other hand, originate from the time of our direct ancestors, who began to use this cave soon after. In these layers, scientists find many more tools, processed animal bones, and other remains.
With the Neanderthals, you have to assume that there were very few of them. And even in this early era of modern humans, the density of finds relating to humans is extremely low overall by our standards. Nevertheless, if we compare the situation of the modern people and the Neanderthals living here, the difference is clearly recognizable. We certainly see that the population density of modern humans was at least 10 times higher compared to Neanderthals.
The numbers fluctuate, but a plausible extrapolation suggests that at the time, around 10,000 modern people, Homo sapiens, lived throughout Europe, but only around 1,000 Neanderthals. But were just 10,000 people able to put serious pressure on wildlife? The story of a lesser-known Ice Age giant provides important clues to this. Researchers repeatedly discover fossils of an imposing animal in the Swabian Alps, the cave bear. Cave bears resembled brown bears, but were much larger and weighed up to 1.5 tons. They must have been fearsome and powerful creatures.
The cave bears did survive comfortably over many, many thousands of years. We have plenty of evidence for cave bears in our region. But then, say, 28,000 BC, at the latest, they're gone.
Is it plausible that the early humans brought these huge bears to the brink of extinction? Some bear bones have cut marks. Our ancestors likely cut the flesh off the bones with sharp stone blades. Bear teeth were also coveted trophies. Perforated teeth were the jewels of our ancestors.
A very important discovery was made only a few years ago. In Hohlfels, we found a thoracic vertebrae of a cave bear with a stone projectile sticking in it.
The flintstone tip of a lance was drilled into the bone of the bear and broke off when hunters impaled the animal. Direct evidence for targeted hunting of cave bears. This find underlines how skillfully our ancestors hunted animals that could become dangerous to them. They used their knowledge of the natural behavior of the Ice Age giants.
The situation is quite favorable. If you go into the caves in winter, the bears are hibernating and then they are, we suppose, relatively easy to overwhelm. And if the hunters also know exactly where to find the cave bears and at what time of year, then this becomes a threat for the animal, and man has certainly contributed to their extinction.
The early demise of the cave bear shows that just tiny populations of humans were enough to bring whole species of animals into distress. After our ancestors had conquered Eurasia, they continued their triumph around the world. They adapted to every new environment, developed ever better weapons, and finally advanced across the Bering Strait to North America. An ice sheet blocked their way south. When it retreated, they could continue to migrate. Here, too, humans encountered animals they had never seen before. New Mexico, 13,000 years ago. A large, shaggy animal is searching for juicy leaves on the shore of a lake. The bizarre creature is a giant sloth, as big as a bison and weighing more than a ton. Hardly any other species spread so successfully throughout America during the Ice Age. In the warm phases, giant sloth even made it to today's Yukon Territory. And yet, after this unique success story, they also died out about 12,000 years ago. Did humans play a role in their extinction too? Where the giant sloths once roamed the riverbanks, there's now a desert with little vegetation. The wind has been blowing gypsum particles incessantly over the past millennia. White sands emerged, the largest gypsum dune field in the world. Sandstorms still rage here sometimes. Like abrasive blasting, the wind removes the upper layers of soil and uncovers fascinating Ice Age treasures. This rich paleontological heritage was discovered only a few years ago. Researchers are now working on recovering and evaluating the findings. What's special? They're not bones, but footprints of Ice Age animals that are around 13,000 years old.
So there you
They can only be seen on the surface with a trained eye. But as soon as one begins to carefully expose the prints, the outlines become ever clearer. It is a fragile piece of natural history. The researchers carefully remove the soft sediment. Slowly, a striking hollow shape becomes visible, the impression of a giant sloth foot. With the help of a foot bone, Dick Mol and sloth expert Greg McDonald can reconstruct exactly how these traces once came to be.
If you look at the way the sloth foot is here, it's got a very broad heel, which would be here. Yeah. And then you can see the toes in front that are going to be impressed into the ground as the animal is walking.
Yeah, but that's the opposite side, because this is the left hind foot, and that's the right hind foot.
Yes.
So now I have the last toe bone of the third finger. If I'm correct, it comes here, and then there's the nail attached to it as well.
Yes, exactly.
So what we are looking at, this bone here is exactly the same as this one.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nice. Okay, yeah, wonderful.
The reason that sloth tracks don't look like any other animal is because sloth feet are quite different. We're used to animals where you can see the toes and they're walking along, but sloths walk on the side of their foot, so their weight is supported by the heel and by the outside bone of the arch of the foot. So you have a very interesting pattern where the tracks often look kidney-shaped with a very wide back, they narrow towards the front, and you often don't see the impressions in the ground from all of the toes.
Giant sloths and other large animals living here apparently fell prey to our ancestors too. This is documented by thousands of human footprints, which are discovered again and again next to those of the animals in the dried mud.
The really incredible thing about white sands is we actually have trackways that extend for almost a mile or beyond. Some of these trackways just go for very great distances. They're so long you can see different interactions between animals and people and animal. And you'll see where a big group of people, maybe 15, 20 people are walking out, and then on the outside, there'll be someone just running. You can see the deep toe marks as they're running. Other places, well, you'll see them stepping backward or turning. You'll even see people limping. So it's really incredible. The story here and the variety of tracks is really amazing.
It's quite nice compared to yesterday.
In the New World, too, our ancestors had their sights set on big animals.
It's quite nice. It's still got that gravelly layer at the base.
And the giant sloth was a very desirable prey.
Tracks offer us a snapshot in time. They allow us to almost go in photographic quality. It's like reading the crime scene in the who did the murder, who killed the animal, in the tracks on the ground, and that's what we're able to do, and that's a level of understanding of these extinct animals that you cannot get from bones. It was one morning we were out excavating the sloth tracks, and we found a human track inside, fully inside and aligned with the sloth track. And got excited, pulse racing, started excavating more and more in the line, realizing that they all had the same human in there. And somebody was deliberately stepping in the sloth track. We think what was happening is that somebody was following the sloth, really stalking it, but also being a nuisance, mimicking it, probably shouting. The sloth was irritated, rearing up, and it's swinging, and very vicious sorts of claws, swinging around, bit over the balance, touching them down as it swings, basically. And then there's a line of toe prints coming in from the side, and we think that's a second hunter coming in to attack the sloth.
If animals escaped injured, humans waited patiently until they succumbed.
Oh, look here, 1, 2, 3.
Giant sloths were not the only Ice Age giants in this area. The largest traces here come from mammoths. Not the woolly-haired mammoths from the northern regions, but their southern cousins, the prairie mammoths, which lived only in North America.
This is beautiful.
It is a lovely track.
This is probably the most beautiful one I've seen so far. I've seen thousands of them already, but
wow.
This is excellent.
It is a very, very nice track.
And smaller ones and bigger ones.
That's right.
Yeah.
Different sizes.
Yeah.
Small group moving through.
And then the researchers come across evidence of the encounter between man and mammoth.
Between the elephants.
Yes.
Did our ancestors also stalk the largest of the Ice Age animals here?
Look, this one.
Yeah. That's got a human in there. That's beautiful.
What is
Look
this?
at that. Look at
Beautiful. Oh. Am I correct that this is a left foot with a human inside?
That's right. And in terms
The measurement
of
of the print should answer an important question.
124, something like that. Yes, it could be a female or it could be an adolescent male. A little bit small for a mature male, but beautiful.
We're not even here for half an hour, and we find footprints of people in the footprints of mammoths. As far as I know, something like this has never been found before. This is a true experience for me as a mammoth fan.
We can say that mammoths and humans were in this area around 11,000, 12,000, 13,000 years ago here at the same time.
Absolutely, they're coexisting on this landscape at that time.
And other animals are the ground sloths, the horses.
Prairie mammoths stood up to 4 meters tall and weighed up to 9 tons. They were bigger than today's African elephants. A single successful hunt was enough to feed a group of people for weeks. But the king of this American animal world was the Smilodon saber-tooth cat, weighing up to 280 kilograms and armed with 20-centimeter long canine teeth. Despite being an apex predator, Smilodon died out about 12,000 years ago. Could his demise also have something to do with man? Phoenix, Arizona. Dick Mol meets John Babiars, a saber-tooth cat expert, to investigate this mystery. Several kinds of saber-tooth cats lived in North and South America during the Ice Age. All these cats were among the most dangerous predators of the age, but none had longer canines than Smilodon.
Oh, yeah. And you can, it's also original. That's original, and this was associated lower.
The skull shape and anatomy of the extinct animals reveal much about their unique way of life.
More of a flattened teeth. Well, the Smilodons were quite stout. If you compare them to a modern lion, about the same size, except mostly muscular. It looked like a lineman on a football team. Just beefy. And you wouldn't want to meet one, in other words, because you wouldn't stand a chance, okay? No matter what size rifle you had. Smilodons were typically stalkers. They couldn't really run as fast, a short burst, let's say, from cover, and leap on anything they could get their teeth into. So they would actually use their forearms as a mechanism to hold the animal steady while they positioned it for the coup d'etat.
The lower jaw opens really wide. And with these long canines, they then stabbed the animal in the neck area. And then they just withdrew and waited. It didn't take long for their prey to bleed to death.
Successful hunts were essential because saber-tooth cats needed lots of meat. They were perfectly adapted to go after large prey. At the end of the Ice Age, they also came under pressure to survive from human competition.
These large sabers, they actually become a hindrance because once the megafauna disappeared, what do you eat? What can you use these for? You can't use them for anything, whereas a lion whose teeth are adapted to different sorts of prey could pursue and eat smaller animals, and they're more diversified, in other words. So if you can diversify your killing technique, you stand a chance of living longer than if you become so specialized.
Humans, on the other hand, were extremely flexible, conquered new territories step by step, and were able to, in a group, kill animals that were so large that even saber-toothed cats avoided them. Humans gradually upset the balance of an ecosystem that had existed for millions of years. Then, the world broke free again from the iron grip of the cold. In the north, the glaciers retreated. The forests began to spread out, and in many regions the steppe was replaced. This rise in temperature met with an already weakened animal world, and the Great Extinction began. In the south, climate change dried up the kingdom of the giant sloth. This time, the animals could no longer escape to greener refuges. Their populations collapsed. This roller coaster ride of climate change forced many Ice Age giants to retreat further north. But most animals were unable to adapt, with one exception, the woolly mammoth. A small remainder retreated to northeast Siberia. There, the animals survived several millennia. As the sea level rose more and more, it trapped the last of their species on an island. There, they died out about 3,700 years ago from lack of food. With that, the era of the large Ice Age animals ended. Climate change and man proved to be a deadly combination.
Humans and mammoths lived alongside one another for a relatively long time. The humans hunted mammoths. The pressure that they put on them, along with climate changes, meant that the mammoths could not survive at the end of the Ice Age. And not only the mammoths disappeared, but also other large mammals of the Ice Age. Smaller animals, such as the reindeer, musk oxen, wolves, and so on, are generalists. They were able to adapt to this new environment where they lived next to us.
Reindeer are not choosy in their search for food. They were able to survive in the Ice Age steppe as well as in today's tundra. Musk oxen have found a retreat in the deserted expanses of the Arctic. Once, they existed side by side with the woolly mammoths. Wolves also mastered the transition into the warm period. In the Ice Age, they shared their habitat with cave lions and saber-toothed cats. But they were the more adaptable hunters. Brown bears lived side by side with cave bears during the Ice Age, but only they survived, albeit mainly in regions unpopulated by humans.
Man has come a long way at the end of the Ice Age. He's intelligent. He can cooperate, communicate, controls fire, eats everything, plants, meat, has so many possibilities to adapt everywhere. And that is why many animals died out then, and man survived, and will probably survive for a long time.
From the point of view of evolution, we humans are ourselves the most successful big animal. We survived the Ice Age and conquered the Earth. Today, really big land animals can be found almost only in Africa. Elephants are closely related to the Ice Age mammoths, but they also prove to be particularly sensitive on closer inspection. Once decimated, their populations recover very slowly. Elephants have very few offspring that need many years of care. The same was true for mammoths. According to calculations, 200 years ago, many millions of elephants lived in Africa. New censuses only estimate around 350,000 animals. The cause of the decline in population is hunting and loss of habitat. Because of poachers, rhinos are even more endangered. Their horn is sold on the black market. Many of these icons of African wildlife can only survive in protected areas. They still remind us of an animal world that once ruled over our Earth, long before man. But this time, we have it in our hands to protect them, to prevent the last of their kind from disappearing forever.